everyone, it's Lindsay Hoffman and welcome to the Dose of Bliss show where we talk about all the inspiration for your life. Today we have my friend Matthew Santoro. He is a big YouTube star with over 6 million subscribers, and we're here to talk about the man we were talking about earlier, in front of the camera, behind the camera, all around the camera. So thank you so much for coming today.
Yeah, thank you, Lindsay. I appreciate it.
So I like to start out the show just kind of explaining to everyone a little bit what you're known for on YouTube, and then we're going to kind of go into a little bit deeper than that. So can you tell all of our viewers a little bit about what you do on YouTube?
Yeah, sure. So I do amazing fact videos with a twist of comedy. I've been doing it for almost 9 years now, which is an insane time frame, and I'm super grateful that I've been able to do it this long. And I also run a side account called Fact Maniac, which is similar to what I do on my YouTube channel, but it just is without me. That's it.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I mean, you've grown it. He's one of the OGs, one of the first people to be there.
Part-time hair model, too.
Part-time hair model.
Yeah. That's not taken off yet, but, you know, I'm working on it.
It looks pretty fresh and clean.
Thanks, yeah, you know.
You're welcome. So being on YouTube, people, you know, they see you as someone who started for so long and has grown so big. But something I've been seeing you post about more is dealing with depression and anxiety, and that's something I want to share with our viewers, because you think just because someone has 6 million followers and, you know, does all these things that you're happy all the time, but that's not always the case. So can you explain a little bit of what you've been dealing with?
Yeah, so I don't like to say I'm cured of depression, but I've definitely gotten to a place where I like to think that the whole depression and anxiety thing, at least the vast majority of it, is definitely in the past for me, which is really nice. But I did go through about a 3-year period that was very difficult for me. I just had multiple things happen that just compounded, one thing after another, and just put me in a really dark place. And because of that, looking back, I'm actually really grateful, as odd as that might sound, that those things happened, because it got me to such a low point that it forced me to confront my mental health. I find that some people have anxiety, but they just assume it's a regular part of life, and it's not debilitating for them. It's just something that they think is normal. But what people don't realize is it's not normal, and it's okay to be depressed and anxious, but it's something that you can defeat and something that you can work with. And for myself, I did 3 things that really helped me get back on a solid footing. One was therapy, one was medication, and one was meditation. And I always tell people that meditation is sort of the thing that'll get you through in the long term. Medication for me was just something that got me back on solid footing. And I think that a lot of people that take medication, they think that that's the cure-all, but it's not. There are people that take medication and they end up just as depressed as they were before, and it's because you have to kind of get to the root issues. So therapy, medication, and meditation is what I would recommend if someone is in that position, they don't know how to get out of it.
And I really like how you said it was like a 3-year thing, because I feel like what you hear from people, like you're saying, it's something people feel like they have to live with. And it's really, in my mind, how you see it. Like, this is something that will pass. Like, you know, someone who's depressed for 3 years is like, I'm depressed, it's 3 years, this is never going to end. But you recognized it as something that was a period of time, that's something you were going through that was going to end.
Yeah.
What, like, made you look at it that way?
I think that, you know, I always recognized that I always had this happy person inside of me. And I always knew that that really was who I was. And I knew that because I used to be really happy.
Yeah.
And then these things happened, and I knew that that wasn't me, but I just didn't know how to get out of it. The way that I would explain it to my therapist was, I'm in a dark room, like a pitch black room, and I know there's a light switch in here, but I just can't find it. And every day it was just grasping. And I called it the depression room. I know, real creative name for it. But it was true. I was in this dark room that I couldn't find my way out. And the way that I looked at it was therapy, medication, and meditation were my ways of, the first 2 specifically was just like a little flicker of light, like in the corner, like, okay, here's a little guidance. And then once those things sort of got me back on solid footing, meditation's really what amplified my mental health getting better. And eventually the light kind of got turned on and I was able to find the way out.
I want to get into meditation in a second, but before we get there, what were like the negative thoughts that were going through your mind, perpetuating the things that you say to yourself?
Yeah, I would just wake up every day and feel super anxious. And I would say anxiety was definitely one of the worst parts about it. The depression part, I feel like anxiety and depression kind of go hand in hand. And what I came to realize was through meditation, and I can't help but just jump back into that because it's so important. Yeah, it's synonymous with this whole thing, is that I was fully identified with my ego. My ego, I thought I was my ego. I thought I was the thoughts that I was having. I thought I was the anxiety and the depression. And through meditation and reading books and watching motivational videos on YouTube every single day and making a genuine effort to try to get out of that place, what I realized was we are not our egos. We are the infinite consciousness behind the ego. And once you recognize that, you can start to observe the ego and observe the thoughts instead of living in the thoughts. And I've been meditating for just over a year now, like literally a year and a week. And I had my 1 year anniversary. It was December 10th that I started meditating. I use the Calm app. I don't know if you use that or not.
No, but I've been looking into it actually.
I can't, honestly, Lindsay, I can't tell you enough about how good it is. There's Headspace too. There's a lot of different options out there. But meditation for sure, above probably all things, is something that everyone needs to do. And by the way, this is coming from a guy that thought it was like a lot of woo-woo nonsense stuff. My friend Evan got me onto it, and I was like, dude, I'm never going to be like this Zen master and things like that. But through educating myself on the topic, what I've come to realize is it's not about shutting the thoughts off. And I think that's the biggest misconception that people have about meditation. It's not about shutting thoughts off, because the only people that can really shut the thoughts off, and we all have these negative thoughts and anxieties and like, why do I feel this way? And you feel like you can't control it sometimes. It's not about trying to control it. It's about observing the thoughts, because only Zen masters that live in the mountains for like 30 years and meditate, they can achieve enlightenment and really shut those thoughts off. For the rest of us that live in the real world, that have to, deal with bills and negative things that happen, and I say negative in quotes because I don't believe there is anything that's necessarily good nor bad. Only thinking makes it so. Shakespeare said that. It's just the label we give it, right? So it's about observing the thought and just recognizing that it's okay if you have a negative thought, and mostly get curious about it. Say, wow, okay, why am I worried about my finances right now? I still have a roof over my head. I still have everything going for me. Okay, now let's just observe that. And you get curious about it, and you start to see that the ego is always bringing negative thoughts into your head. And it's not something to get angry at the ego about, because the ego is there. It was there from caveman times. It was the thing that was designed to keep us alive, not make us happy. That's what the ego is there for. It's the part of our brain that says there's a tiger outside the cave, or there's a monster outside the cave. We have to protect, the kids and the wife, or vice versa. And so that's what the ego is designed for. But as we evolved, the ego didn't evolve.
Yeah, and there's no tigers after us anymore. Right,
but that's why the ego needs to look for something to be worried about. That's its function. So without worrying about food and water and safety, then it needs to look for something else. That's why we have these irrational thoughts of worrying about this, worrying about that. That's why you see there are billionaires that are depressed, because they're completely identified with their ego. You would look at them and say, oh, they have no worries in the world. But some billionaires are the most depressed people in the world. And you hear that more and more. And it's just because money doesn't make you happy. And without a solid footing and an understanding of, like I said, we are the infinite consciousness behind the ego, you really can't find happiness without that understanding.
Yeah, and that sounds like something that it would say in meditation, or it actually sounds like, have you read the book, The Power of Now?
Of course.
Yeah, because what you're saying, separating, and people who are watching might not understand the ego and the self, but it kind of says in the book that you separate, like when you say the word, myself, it's two things. Like my is like I, and the self is like another thing.
Right.
So it's like the ego is one, and when you can separate the two,
And also, if you look at the word disease, if you break that down, it's dis-ease. So when your body's not at ease and you're constantly, depressed and anxious and feeling down and worried all the time, that manifests into disease in the body. And I'm lucky to say that, thank God, that over that 3-year period, as far as I know, nothing's happened to me.
It could affect you, though.
Yeah, but that's why it's so important that people really take their mental health seriously, and honestly, just start a conversation. Like, we live in a very blessed time right now where mental health is a topic of conversation.
Yeah, you can talk about it now.
Yeah, that's like what we're doing right now.
Yeah, before it was like therapy,
it's a beautiful
medicine,
thing.
like,
It's a beautiful thing. And my grandparents are from Italy, and you don't talk about those things. Like, that is, it's almost a shameful thing. It's like, you just don't talk about it. Like, if someone had mental issues, it's like, we just don't talk about that. And then people never got help. But we're very blessed to live in a time now where we can talk about these things and on podcasts and shows.
That's why I'm so glad you're here, because people don't know. Like, right now, we were talking earlier, like, both of us, you're getting over food poisoning.
Right now.
Yeah, right now.
That's why my energy's super low.
My energy's low too, because I've been having stomach issues, but you push through it, you go through things, but you don't really know. You see us on camera and you're like, they look fine, they're happy, they're talking, but we have low energy, but we come here because we want to help the people watching and let them know that not every day is like a good day. Like, that's life, but we have to work through it.
Right, and I also want to point out, you just touched on something important. I also want to point out that the things that we see on social media is a polished, perfect version of people's lives. And I think people are absolutely waking up to that now, but it's worth touching on again, because for those of you that are on social media and you're depressed, or your finances aren't good, or you're anxious, or you're not where you want to be in your life, if you go on social media, just understand that the influencers that you follow, or these Instagram models, or these anybody that's on there that's showing private jets, and it's this polished, like, perfect version of these people's lives. But I promise you, that's all that it is. It's this unrealistic version, and just understand that that's why these people do it, is because they're influencers, or they're trying to put their best face forward, but it's not reality. And you see this happening more and more in Hollywood even. Some of the most beloved actors are killing themselves. Like Robin Williams, this is a guy that was beloved by everybody. Like, who doesn't like Robin Williams, right? And this is a man that accomplished so much in his life, but as it turns out, he was trying to make everyone else happy because he couldn't make himself happy. And you see that happening more and more, and that's just, it's as sad as it is, it's important to look at those examples and recognize that the perfect face that we put forward, and the red carpets, and the tuxedo events, and all these things, and the vacations that these influencers put online, it's not real life. It's happening, but that's one portion of the rest of their lives. So it's something worth noting. Yeah, no, that's really true. And I think also what people need to learn from that too is we need to focus, how you're saying, on ourselves, not just what we're putting out there, but like who we are. So for people watching, I think something that you said earlier that's really important is you kind of found a routine of what you did. You said, one of the things you did was therapy. One of the things you did was meditation. You read books. A New Earth, by the way. You what? Eckhart Tolle, A New Earth. Oh, I haven't done that one. Oh, yeah. I love so read The Power of Now. That gives you the building blocks of meditation, understanding what the ego is. And then the next step up, I would say, read A New Earth. Yeah, it's money. It's so good. Yeah, oh my God, his books are the best. And that's what I wanted to let the viewers share with them and let them know is it's important to have a routine. So if someone watching is just starting, and whoever's watching this is being like, I feel the way that Matthew is describing, what's an easy way to start? Because it might be daunting to be like, I'm going to read a book, I'm going to meditate for an hour. So what's something simple that they can do to get started? Yeah. You don't have to see the whole staircase, you just have to see the first step. And I like to tell people that because I think people have this unrealistic expectation that, okay, I'm going to download an app, I'm going to start meditating, and in a week I'm going to be fine. No, it took me a good 8 months to really get to a place where I was even able to create a tiny sliver between me and my ego. You have to understand, most people have been identified with their ego for ever 20 years, 30 years. So that's going to take a long time to create even a little separation. It's like super glue. You've been super glued to that. So even to create a little space is going to take time. For me, just to take a little breathing space for my mind to go, it took almost a year. So it's something you really have to stick with. But what I tell people is, look, it's $60 a year for some of these apps, right? And it's funny because people, when I tell people that, like Calm, for example, it's $60 a year, and people go, oh, $60? And it's funny because you wouldn't think twice about spending $200 on a pair of shoes.
Exactly.
But when it comes to your mental health, you hesitate. Why is that? And everybody does, right? You wouldn't hesitate to spend $100 a month on the gym, but you hesitate when it comes to your mental health. Why? And I think it's because we don't look at the brain the same way that we do other parts of the body. But we need to start looking at it like that. If you broke your arm, you'd put a cast on your arm, right? You wouldn't leave it. It's the same thing with your brain. If you're depressed and anxious, get help. Put a cast on that. Do something. Get medication or meditate and therapy, all of these things. It's the exact same thing. So if we stop treating the brain with a stigma and start looking at it as, oh, it's just another body part and I need to fix this, then that would be the first step I would tell people for sure.
That's really true. And the next question is going to be my last question, but I just wanted to add to that is something I always say is, you know, when you're upset or not feeling well or something, you're going through a period of time where you're sad, why don't we look at it like working out? Like when you are at the gym, when your muscles are hurting, you're not like, I mean, you might say, oh, I hate working out, I'm in pain, but you also are thinking, oh, I'm getting stronger, I'm going to look good, I'm going to have abs, that's why I'm hurting.
Yeah.
You don't realize that with your mind could be hurting because you are like growing to a new level and you need to maybe get a personal trainer or find a way, exactly like you're saying, to grow. And I think if only we would look at it as a way of growing versus something's wrong with you,
right.
I think, and that sounds like that's what you're doing, I think that would make a really big difference.
Yeah, your mind is a muscle, like just like anything else. So it'll take time to work that muscle out. And if you've never worked out, you know how difficult it is to go to the gym and be like, oh my God, I got to lift this weight, and it's difficult. But it's the exact same thing. When you lift a weight for the first time, chances are you can lift that weight pretty easily. But as anyone knows who's been to the gym for the first time, the next day you're in tremendous pain, right? And then it gets harder, but eventually, so it goes like this, and then it drops off, and then you start to build on that muscle, right? It's the exact same thing with meditation. You start, you're like, oh, this is so great. I was able to, I couldn't shut the thoughts off, but I was able to relax. And then you just get discouraged. But then over time, you start to recognize, okay, it's not about shutting the thoughts off. It's about observing the thoughts. And that's it.
That's so true. And the last thing I wanted to say is, over those last 3 years, what is the biggest thing that you've learned that you want to tell people?
Wow. The biggest thing that I've learned. That forgiveness is so important for your mental health. I cannot stress that enough. I was a hypocrite for a long time because I always preached to people, forgiveness. But the truth was, I did not forgive people in the way that I really should have. And when you hold a grudge, it's like drinking poison and hoping the other person dies. And it's very true. And I would highly recommend to people that if someone's hurt you in the past, for me, I actually thank those people because it got me to literally such a low place that I wouldn't be where I'm at right now. I would not have confronted my mental health issues if it wasn't for the specific people that hurt me tremendously over those 3 years. And literally, if I ever saw them today, I'd probably want to give them a hug because I just wouldn't be where I'm at right now. So for anyone out there that anyone's hurt you, and everyone's had someone that's hurt them deeply, right? For those people, start thinking of them with love and recognize that they must have been in a tremendously sad place in their lives to do what they did to you. So if you approach that with love and compassion and say, oh, wow, it's not about what they did to me, I'm strong enough to handle that. What happened in their life that made them do that? And you almost take pity on them. And you start to be able to pray for them and send good vibes their way and say, oh, I really hope that they can find a better place in their lives. And through all of these things, you eventually just start to let things go. And I find that holding a grudge is like carrying around a 50-pound weight everywhere you go. You're just dragging it and dragging it. And you can't run. You can't run towards your destiny and recognize your full potential because you're dragging this thing. I remember on my 33rd birthday, I remember the exact moment when I just finally let everything go. And it was like a weight lifted off my shoulder. I had an anxiety attack. I saw literally multiple people, the specific people that hurt me a lot over those 3 years, all gathered together at this event that a YouTuber threw on. And I'll never forget it. I couldn't breathe. I was freaking out. I'm like, oh my God, like all these people are together right now. How can that be? It's almost all the exact people that hurt me. And it just blew my mind. I couldn't handle it. My ex-girlfriend was at this event, and it was someone that I loved deeply. And just to see her with these people, and she knew about these people, I had a crazy anxiety attack. I thought I was going to die. I couldn't breathe. And I was staying with my friend Evan in Toronto at the time, and he came home. I said, dude, you got to come home. I think I'm dying. Like, I can't breathe. He came home, and I said, you know, oh my God, I wish I was there because maybe I could forgive these people and say to their face and blah, blah, blah. And he looked at me and he said, Matt, you can forgive them right now. Right now. And when he said that, it was just like, it made so much sense to me. And I thought, oh my God, I've had this power all along. I could have done this the whole time. And it was like the shackles broke, and I felt a sense of calm, and I almost felt enlightened in that moment, even if it was just for a brief moment. And I feel like I touched the source energy, or love, or God, or good vibes, or the universe, whatever you want to call it. I really touched love in that moment. And ever since then, I've just been able to approach things so much differently when people hurt me. I approach it through love and compassion. When someone sends me a hate tweet, I don't take it personally. I don't get angry. I immediately think, oh, what's going on in their life that's making them sad like that? And I even reach out to people now. If they send me a hateful message, I say, hey man, I saw your message, like, are you all right? I don't even acknowledge what they said. I just say, hey, are you all right? And 90% of the time people will say, oh geez, you know, I didn't think you'd even see that. My parents are going through a divorce, or this or that happened. And I didn't know what to do, and I was just angry, I'm really sorry. And I'll have a conversation with them via DM. I don't announce it, I don't tell anyone I did it. I just have a conversation with people, because sometimes it's a cry for help, you know? And when people put that kind of hate out there, it's really just a cry for help. So if you look at it like that and approach it with love and compassion, not only will you not take it personally and be upset, but you'll actually be helping another person.
Thank you so much for being here. Can you tell everybody where they can follow you?
Yeah, just at Matthew Santoro on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I don't really think anyone uses Snapchat anymore, but I guess on there. Yeah, and just Matthew Santoro. And yeah, just Matthew Santoro on YouTube. You can find me on there. And feel free to check out my videos. I'd be super grateful.
Yeah, they're amazing. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please subscribe to the Dose of Bliss show. This will be on every single platform, so whatever platform you're watching on, like, share, favorite. And thank you for Focus TV for making this possible. We'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye, guys.